As this year comes to a close, it is now time to reflect and list my top 10 games of 2018. Although I still feel like last year was overall better, 2018 was definitely no slouch. Actually, if we were strictly talking PlayStation, 2018 might be the best year of this generation. My PS4 without a doubt had the most playtime this year, with PC and Xbox One tied at second, and my Nintendo Switch somewhere in the distance wondering what happened. Regardless though, there were many genres this year that I was able to get my hands on, both AAA and indie, and because of that I feel like my list is going to be a lot different than many others. Before I start, I'd like to give an honorable mention to the games I beat this year that were released in prior years. So here's a highlight reel of these awesome older games that made my year even better. So now that we have appreciated some older greatness, let's get on to my top 10 games of 2018. Kicking us off at number 10 is Shadow of the Colossus. It's easy to forget this game even came out this year, being that it came out so early in 2018. But this was the game that kicked off my year, and what better game than a game like this? Shadow of the Colossus is beautiful, one of the best looking games I played this year, and I really enjoyed the subtle story that went along with it. It told so much by saying so little, and I'm a sucker for those kinds of games. I love interpreting things my own way and just kind of trying to figure out what does this mean, what is going on, and Shadow of the Colossus did not disappoint in that department. I wasn't able to experience this game back on the PS2, so now that it's here, remade for the PS4, I definitely made sure I got my hands on it, and I thought it was a great experience. It was like I understood what people were saying when they said this game is incredible. The scale of it is incredible, and it's a game that was ahead of its time. I could see what people are saying now. Just the grand, epic scale of these colossi, these bosses alone, is just very impressive, especially knowing this did come out on the PS2. It's kind of wild. But yeah, I really enjoyed my time with Shadow of the Colossus. The controls were a bit funky, but it wasn't enough to ruin my experience and it being on this list. So yeah, Shadow of the Colossus here at number 10. Next at number 9 is Chasm. This is a little indie Metroidvania that I was able to play this year, one that I was looking forward to since 2015. It was delayed a couple times and I had been wondering, when is this game coming out? And then finally it came out and I was able to play it on PS4, which was a great experience. I actually really liked this game. The more I thought about it when putting together this list, I realized like, man, I really put a lot of time into Chasm, whether it was looking for trophies or just trying to discover all the enemies and collect them, or just checking out the new areas and discovering new items and things like that. Chasm was definitely one of those games that gave me that Metroidvania fix. It wasn't the strongest one, but it did have hints of inspiration from those games I just love so much. So yeah, Chasm, I do recommend it. Don't let the looks fool you. It's a good game. I thought some of the bosses were really unique, and it was challenging at times, especially when it came to the platforming. So yeah, Chasm made it here at number 9, and I feel it's well deserved. Next at number 8 is A Way Out. Talk about refreshing and something different. A Way Out is this co-op experience that is split screen, and you play with a friend and you work together in order to progress and get through the story. I played with my good friend Shar and we live streamed this. This was definitely one of my favorite live streams of the year, the most fun I probably had. And I just enjoyed all my time with this game. It's short and sweet, it's not very long. I think we beat it in like 2 play sessions, but we enjoyed it. We had a good time. I enjoyed the characters and the story and just the twists and turns that we went through. We sort of even put ourselves in the shoes of these characters, and that made it even more interesting because it felt like we were able to jab at each other the whole time as if that was really us making these decisions and all of that. We just had a good time. So yeah, I do recommend this game so much for anybody who just has someone to play with or you want to stream something fun. This is a game you don't want to miss, that's for sure. And I really hope that they make games like this in the future, whether it's this developer or someone else. I just want to have more of these experiences. So hopefully that happens. But in the meantime, reflecting on this year, yes, A Way Out deserves a spot on this list. Coming in at number 7 is Detroit Become Human. I really liked this game. I loved the characters. I started off really liking one character, then by the middle of the game I liked all of them, and then by the end of it I was devastated when I lost one. That's what really got me to think, yes, this game is something special. I liked how many paths I could take in the game, how many different outcomes, because usually when it comes to these type of games, these story-driven, quote-unquote, choice-making games, like Telltale and stuff like that, they usually end up the same. Maybe there's a couple little differences here and there, but for the most part, you pretty much get the same ending as someone else. But with Detroit, it was a whole different level. There were so many different endings, so many different paths, and that to me was just really impressive. So that alone, to me, gets this game on this list. Just how much I enjoyed taking different paths and then also, you know, kind of connecting with these characters, caring about them, trying to keep them safe. So yeah, when I did lose one at the end, it got me in my feels a little bit. And that's something I always bring up whenever I'm talking about Detroit, whether it's on a podcast or on my review of the game or just in general, the things I liked about it. I always bring up the characters and just how sad I was when something bad happened to one of them. So yeah, Detroit, just a really well done game when it comes to its story, character development, graphics. I mean, look at this. And just gameplay overall I thought was interesting and it was a good experience for this year. At number 6 is Celeste. Indie of the Year it took at the Game Awards this year, and I cannot agree more. From those that were listed and nominated, that was my choice. I thought Celeste deserves it. It also deserved Best Music, but it didn't get it, unfortunately, and I do think it was robbed. Celeste has some great music. If you're into platformers, you're into great music, you're into just a good challenge, Celeste is that game. And this really kicked off the year too when it comes to platforming. I feel like this was one of those games that gave me my first challenge this year and almost had me throwing my Switch against the wall, to be honest, especially towards the end. It gets pretty challenging. Of course, my Switch is fine. I didn't throw it or anything. I did conquer the Celeste Mountain, and it was really satisfying. Don't let the looks fool you or anything like that. I think the game looks beautiful, but I know it's kind of common for some gamers to think games like this just don't really have a chance at being great. And they couldn't be more wrong. Celeste is just good. It's such a good game. And the story is actually deep and meaningful, but even if you ignored it, it would still be a great game because the gameplay just shines so much. But in my experience, I actually took in the story a bit, and I found that it was really deep, it was meaningful, even on a personal level, so that just made my experience even better. At number 5 is Marvel's Spider-Man. This was actually the toughest game to list for me when it came to making this list and going back and reflecting on these games. I knew it would be in the top 10, I just didn't know where, but I ultimately came to the conclusion that it deserves the number 5 spot because I liked it a little bit more than Celeste, but a little bit less than the next game. Spider-Man was just fun. That's the best way I can put it. It was just a fun game, and I enjoyed my time with it. I enjoyed the characters in the game, of course Peter Parker and Mary Jane. Playing as her, not so much. There was one mission that I did enjoy, but for the most part, I just wanted to be Spider-Man for all of it, and I enjoyed doing that. From the web swinging to the combat, to the dialogue and narrative in the story. It was a good time. I also really enjoyed the music. I felt like it was perfect for the game. It had that superhero feeling. I typically don't play a lot of superhero games, and even watch movies for that matter, but as a kid, Spider-Man was one of those that I looked to whenever I did buy a comic book or I did watch cartoons or watch movies. And so to be able to have the experience now is pretty cool. You know, this was a superhero that I loved growing up, and here I am playing a game that is so Spider-Man. I mean, that's really the best way to say it. The web swinging, the combat, the narrative, the characters, the dialogue between them. It's just such a Spider-Man game, and Insomniac did a really good job with it. And of course, when I'm looking at this year and thinking of the highlights, Spider-Man was definitely one of them. At number 4 is Guacamelee 2, another platformer, another challenging game, and another one that was just fun. Guacamelee 2 just was a good time. I enjoyed the Mexican culture references, the pop culture references, and just the music itself was uplifting and fun. I rarely got upset when I died during this game, and that did happen a lot, but I think the music and just how cheerful it was and how goofy it was at times as far as the gameplay and the enemies and all that, it just always kept me in a good mood. And as I was playing this game and enjoying it, I kept wondering to myself, how did I ever miss this franchise? How did I not play this before? Because this is such a game that is for me, you know? I love the platforming, I thought it was challenging, and I loved this game so much. I actually went back and played the first Guacamelee and beat that soon after. So yeah, I knew right away this was going to be high on the list if I ever made one, and here we are, Guacamelee 2 at number 4, and well deserved. So now we're down to the final 3, which I'm sure you're already guessing. At least 2 of them, right? But how do they really line up? That's the big question. The next in the list may shock you, or not surprise you at all, depending how you feel about clunky controls. So yeah, number 3, we have Red Dead Redemption 2. If you had asked me midway through my playthrough with Red Dead 2 where it would land on this list, I would have sworn it would be number 1 or number 2. But as I completed the game, many things changed. The controls and this commitment to realistic animations really ended up holding back my potential experience with Red Dead 2. It really started to weigh on me just how bad the controls were and how much better I wish they were. But let me save you the time, and if you really want to hear all my criticisms and complaints about the game, check out my review if you haven't yet. For right now, let's just talk about what gets this game so high on my list. My experience with Red Dead 2 still stood out amongst many other games just because of the world. It being so beautiful, so detailed, so full of life is what really impressed me about Red Dead 2. I couldn't stop staring at everything. I couldn't stop exploring and looking for new things. And even though the story and all of that kind of struggles at the end for me a little bit, overall, I just thought the game story was pretty well done, and the characters, in my opinion, really made the story better. Not to mention, Arthur Morgan is probably my favorite character this year. He really carried the story for me, which I felt was a good story, but he made it great. And even the supporting characters as well, for better or for worse. Sometimes I liked them, sometimes I hated them, but that just goes to show you how well done the character development is, as well as the voice acting. Red Dead just does a lot of things right, but that one major thing they don't do right, which is the controls, that really pushed it down to number 3. I even said in my review, we were so close, you guys. We were so close to a game of the generation here. And here we are with my top 10 games of the year, and Red Dead again is so close, but so far. Because at number 2 is a game that really played on my nostalgia. You know, they say nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and I'm not afraid to admit I might have a problem. The 8-bit and 16-bit era is what I grew up in, so when this game presented gameplay where you have to transition between the two, I couldn't help but fall in love. And of course, I'm talking about this game, The Messenger. The great thing about The Messenger is that even though it is a nostalgic trip, clearly, it still feels like a new one. And that's because the controls feel so responsive, they feel updated. I felt like every death I had was my fault. So even though it looks like an older game, it didn't play like one. And it was a very satisfying game to get through. Trust me, I think I had over like 300 deaths in this game. A lot of challenge here, especially with some of the bosses, but even more especially with the platforming. Platforming in The Messenger is very challenging, and I just enjoyed getting through it, figuring out what works, what I should do, what I shouldn't do. Also the music. I can't speak enough about the music. The music in The Messenger is really well done. It just gives you that feeling, that 8-bit and 16-bit feeling. And then when you were able to transition between the two and the music changes as well, that was always impressive. So yeah, The Messenger, I love this game so much I beat it in 3 days. That's all you really need to know right there. I was hooked. And now here we are at the #1 game of 2018. Before making this list and figuring out where games like Red Dead 2 were going to go, I had clicked on a few videos of my gameplay of just all the random games that I played this year. And the instant that I had seen my gameplay for this next game on the list, I knew there was no doubt in my mind that this is my favorite game of the year, just by looking at it, just by looking at some of its beauty. I knew that this was the best game of 2018. And that, of course, is God of War. I'm hard-pressed to even find things I don't like about this game, to be honest. It's part of the reason I didn't really even want to do a review, and I didn't make one, because it was just gonna all be praise. I mean, I guess I could have complained about some of the bosses being repeated, but I honestly loved fighting these bosses, and it was just so epic. The game was so epic. And in terms of the combat, just some of the best I've experienced. I really enjoyed Atreus and Kratos working together and then incorporating Atreus's gameplay with mine, and it was just so fluid and just so natural. And even when it comes to just the story itself and them interacting with each other in terms of narrative and dialogue, it was great to see Kratos humanized like this, where he had regret and remorse about his past, and to where he didn't want Atreus to follow in his footsteps. This created a dynamic between them where there was anger, there was tension, there was awkwardness even, and that to me really carried the story and made it what it was. I just loved this game. God of War was incredible to me across the board. Graphics, sound design, character development, music, the combat, I loved so much. So yeah, I really can't say enough about this game, and if I kept going, we'd be here forever. So yeah, God of War here at #1, so well deserved, just such a great game, to the point where this isn't just only a game of 2018, this is a game of the generation, and I stand by that. There's no way to talk about this year without mentioning this game. It's really the best one I played. So yeah, that's my list. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope it was entertaining. Thank you so much for the support this year. Seriously, I just want to express how appreciative I am of all you guys watching my videos, hitting the like button, checking out all my content. I appreciate that a lot. And I hope you are here in 2019. Let's just ride it out together. Thanks guys, and I will catch you next year.